Well, my in-house guest is here, aka Mary Poppins. I'm talking about Sweetie Abochi. She's flanking me on the left, far left, but also joining us, we have Wisdom Dugbe. He'll be joining us virtually. Afil Money is former president of the GJA. Remy Edmondson is national secretary of the PPP. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning,
Efi Shapa.
Afi Nkomboti.
Lovely color.
Thank you.
And
Brave
the outfit.
men wear pink, Ben.
And
I've seen it in so many.
It's news to me.
Is this pink, though?
It's quite refreshing.
Yeah.
I see it to be closer to lilac.
Oh.
And here comes Benjamin Akako with the colors.
And Remy Edmondson is also back.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, let's get into your thoughts for us this morning.
Shall we check, though, whether Wisdom is with us?
Yes. Wisdom Dog, are you on with us? Good morning.
Okay.
Okay.
He may not
I
yet
think
be.
when he does join us, we would announce his presence. But let me start with you, Remy Edmondson. It's been a minute. How's the PPP? And post-election, how's it feeling?
Yeah, we're doing great. It's a new year. I mean, internally, we're also looking at starting our processes quite earlier. Yeah, there's a need to...
What processes?
As in the internal reorganization processes, yes, to get us ready for 2028. Yes, this time we're starting this year at the constituency level, and then to ensure that, let's say by next year, we want to go have an early congress and ensure that we have all our structures set at least 2 years in advance before the elections. Yeah,
Okay.
put us in pole position. Yeah.
Great. Any major story you want to reflect on quickly before I pass the baton on to Mr.
Yeah, it's about the ongoing vetting of the ministerial nominees. I think from what we witnessed yesterday, we are seeing quite a bit of tensions arising. But I mean, I'll urge all of them to just put the national interests at heart, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that, yes, I know they're also doing their duty to ensure that they grill their appointees very well and ensure they're up to the task, and also asking them questions will help the general populace know their thoughts, the appointees know, yes, the thoughts they have for the positions at hand. So, but we don't want to see some of what happened yesterday with some walking out and all of that. But let's put the national interest first, and we need to get them working as soon as possible to work for the country.
Okay. Mr. Money, your take.
I think I'd like to zoom in on the post-mortem being conducted by MPP on its huge electoral setback, which is a source of bafflement, not only to them, but to political watchers.
Is it really? Are people really baffled by the defeat?
Yes, because how many people saw it coming with that magnitude?
Okay.
The eight-year cycle is real, but what one can deduce from the just election is that it can be reduced to 4-year cycle. So it can be one-term project for any government, depending on how you perform. And the Michael Okoye Committee is obliged to conduct this exercise with all absorbing attention and all consuming seriousness, because on paper we have about 26 political parties, but in reality ours is a two-party system. We have only two political behemoths in this country, NDC and MPP, whether they like it or not. And we know that political parties are the building blocks of democracy. So whatever happens to any one of these parties will have a direct correlation on the health of our democracy. So we need to take with all seriousness what is happening in the camp of MPP, because we want a democracy to be on the path of ascendancy and not on the path of retrogression.
Thank you so much, Mr. Money. Sounding a word of caution for us all there. Ben, I think we have Wisdom now.
We do.
Yeah.
Wisdom, good morning. It's good having you. Thank you for joining the conversation. I hope you're well this morning.
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking.
Great. What are your quick thoughts? I mean, there has been the vetting of nominees. There also has been the different approaches to tackling our energy issues, talk of which taxes we're scrapping. All of those conversations are in there. But what would you like to talk about this morning, briefly?
Yeah, I would leave that one until we get into the papers. But I read a news article about Ghana being ranked the second most indebted African country to the IMF. And that just got me thinking. I think we need to start thinking more about our debt sustainability as a nation. And I'm glad that it is an important issue for a new president and an incoming finance minister. At this point, we all may know that, we have quite substantial debt servicing costs, which means that funds we could use for critical public services and development projects, these funds are diverted to support the debt burden of the nation. And with a significant portion of the budget allocated to debt repayment, Ben, that just means that the government may have limited fiscal space to invest in growth-enhancing initiatives, which could also hinder overall economic development. And IMF loans typically come with conditionalities that may include, austerity measures, tax increases, as we saw from the previous administration. So it is not always a good thing to be number one or number two borrower from the IMF. The conditionalities alone, that can put a substantial stress on the citizens economically. So I'm hoping that we can renegotiate some of our loan agreements with the IMF to ease some of these conditionalities. And I am certain that our incoming finance minister and his team, through the soon-to-be-established independent debt management office, they will pursue policies that will reduce our debt burden. And I'm very confident in the abilities of Honorable Dr. Tuforson, and I believe in his economic vision for our nation, and I will do my part from far and near to help him to be successful.
But just a quick follow-up. Renegotiating with the IMF is sometimes easier said than done. What is your thinking on that? It's not always that easy to renegotiate.
You see, I believe that the IMF considers us as one of their key partners, one of their key development partners, even in the region or globally. So I think we do have some leverage over there. They want us to be successful, right? Without Ghana, IMF will not be that successful. So I believe that they will be very open to renegotiation, even though, as you said, it's very difficult to accomplish.
Right. Let's get into the newspapers now. Thank you, Wisdom. I have the Daily Graphic. I'll start there. On the front page, spare parents, senior high school funding burden. I think this story was also in the papers yesterday. Charles Wright is saying that we should pay particular attention to what's happening when it comes to feeding in senior high schools. Now, government will explore private participation in ECG, says Minister-designate for Energy. Finance Minister-designate promises economic relief, E-levy betting tax to go. And let me get into a bit of that story. So the Minister of Finance designate, Dr. Kaysola Tuforson, has stated that his topmost priorities will be to work very hard to lower prices, stabilize the Ghana cedi, and create jobs towards lowering the cost of living for Ghanaians. It's something he said yesterday, gentlemen, that really struck me. He said he wants to be remembered as a finance minister who reduces costs in terms of cost of living and all that. And it's no surprise to us that E-levy, betting tax, and all these taxes will go, but the assurance he gave that it will go within the 120 days as promised by President John Dramani Mahama is what was reassuring to me. But let me just add one more story from the Energy so that we can talk about the vetting that happened yesterday. And that story is on page 14 of the Daily Graphic, and this is on John Abdullahi Jinapor. So the Minister for Energy and Green Transition designate, John Abdullahi Jinapor, has said the government will explore private sector involvement in the operation of the Electricity Company of Ghana to improve its efficiency and revenue collection. I'm sure we all followed what happened yesterday. I was telling Ben this morning that it made for good TV because Afenyo Makin just won't let anybody speak. But let me start with you, Mr. Moni. What did you make of the rhetoric from those who were vetted yesterday, especially energy and finance?
First of all, let me comment on the internally long hours used in vetting the nominees. I don't think that there's a correlation between the length in vetting the minister and the quality of the questions which should be fielded by the MPs. They could have condensed their time in vetting the nominees, and it would have saved all of us the trouble of listening, watching, and at a point, then one Agboja MP, NDC MP, had to complain bitterly about the length of. I think the committee should take this into consideration because They can condense whatever they did in 5 hours into 2 hours or 1 hour.
I thought they would even cap the number of questions each person could ask.
Yes, so it's also up to the committee members to compare notes, arrive at what questions to ask and who should ask and all that, so that we'll all be saved in the long hours of listening to the vetting, which is, of course, a very important exercise to test the quality of the ministers nominated by His Excellency the President to do the job they promised.
But even before you get to Atu, I think there's some streamlining because you spoke about whether they could segregate the questions. I think for first-time MPs, at least from what I've noticed, maybe they get one question to ask. I think Charles, is it Forsen in the Tema area? Either Tema West or Tema Central, one of those. I think he wanted to go 2, but they capped him to 1. And I think it applies. But when it comes to the ranking member, the leader on the minority side, usually there's some leeway. But that also lends room for some, like what was referenced yesterday, abuse. And honestly, while it is a process that can't be taken for granted, some of the questions, it was much ado about nothing, really. And maybe just to show you some power. But I feel if you have cogent questions, go to them. There were some things that I found very reflective about Kasilato Forsen, but something also that got me a little concerned because of the flip-flopping. Something he had said in the past versus what he was now saying, as far as the road tolls were concerned. You see, it's focus on the important things. But some of the things that were being asked, it was almost as though, you know what, I have to pin you down. And I felt that was unnecessary.
I think the chairman too was a bit harsh.
Was he?
Harsh? Some say he was too lenient.
Interesting.
Two sides of, I'm serious. I read comments about how you need to control the room. You need to make sure that, you put your foot down. Others are saying, why is he just letting everybody have their way? And others are saying the way his approach to speaking to the NPP members, that's maybe where you can say he was a bit harsh. But I just want to, feed into Ben's point about some of the questions which were unnecessary.
Some of the questions were unnecessary.
Asking a minister-designate to disclose his address live on national television, I think that was a bit too far. For security reasons even, you don't disclose your address. Now the whole world knows where his house is. Anyway, back to your...
So, and the chairman was always on coalition calls with a minority leader. And I believe this should be avoided going forward because it also ate into the precious time in vetting the nominees. On the quality of questions, answers, I think we will all hold Atu to promise that E-levy will go, E-levy will go. Betting tax will also go. And he did assure the nation that despite the fact that he was going to scrap certain taxes, they were prudent in the expenditure and to ensure that we do not sink deeper into the economic hole in which we find ourselves. The fact is that we are not out of the woods yet. Our economy is still on the ropes, tailspin, one can describe that. Even though we are told that our economy is back to pre-COVID days, but the reality on the ground suggests otherwise. So there's a need for more prudence in tackling our economy to ensure that we do not worsen the plight of the public area.
All right, thank you. Remy?
Yes, sweetie. Yes, on the finance minister-designate promise about cancel the E-levy and some taxes, it's quite refreshing, but then also would also want to know, these are we also aware these taxes are also providing some revenue for the government. So we also want to see what other measures they'll put in place to make up for these revenue shortfalls once these taxes are abolished.
Atu said they would ensure that they were widening the tax
rates,
ensuring people were paying up, because you know that those who pay are far fewer than those who don't pay. So he says these are some of the mechanisms they will use to take care of it. It remains to be seen.
Yes, we'll see less of the tax waivers in this regime as well. Yes, and but the betting tax is really an issue I think we need to have a good conversation on, because I'm talking about I know a lot of the youth were clamoring for this, but you see, I see this as a sort of artificial relief for our youth. We are having a lot of our youth getting addicted to betting. It's a very serious issue we're not looking at, and probably we might see the consequences in a few years' time. I mean, I know for most of the youth, it's sort of an avenue to sort of, try and make some extra revenue. But ask yourself, how many actually make winnings at the end of the day? Many youth are getting into betting because, I mean, they are really hard up. There are very few opportunities for them. People need extra income. So I think that is where we need to have a policy to look at how we can ensure that the quality of living for the youth goes up. So they won't have to resort to, I mean, it's the same for the lottery as well. It will amaze you how many people, I mean, with the advent of the it being digital now, it's so easy for people to do this. So yes, it might provide some relief. I mean, some are advocated rather increasing the tax rather to serve as a deterrent. But let's look at this betting as well. And for the energy minister, I mean, he also did well, but I'm not too comfortable with the private sector participation that is being muted.
In ECG?
Yes. I mean, personally, I consider energy to be a national security issue. And I think we really need to think twice about going this line. We all know that, yes, the challenges, part of the challenges, some of the power sector has been ECG's inability to, I mean, properly go after their debtors. Okay, the collection of the monies. Yes, it's a key issue. We have so many ministries and so many private sectors companies that are owning. There are also inefficiencies in the system. There are a lot of power losses issues that really need to be looked at. I'm sure if we went that angle, because if we are going to bring in I always say that, why is it that, yes, ECG is supposedly not doing well, but why is the private sector, why is there the clamor to get the private sector involved? Because immediately the private sector comes in, they will be able to put in the measures to ensure that they make ECG profitable. Why can it not be done?
I have seen something in recent times where the ECG was talking about Operation Keep the Lights On, where they are hoping to, in fact, I think they were heading into Tema and other enclaves where if you hadn't paid, your lights would go off until you had paid and all of that. Good initiatives. But remember Samuel Dubik Mahama. What did he not do on some of these? Still, there were pitfalls, which is part of why the cash waterfall mechanism did not work, at least as well as it ought to have worked. So to the point where the IPPs were clamoring for their debts and all of that to be paid. The past administration, the Nana Akufo-Addo administration, had something in the pipeline in terms of privatization. For me, I think it is the quotient of privatization that is the issue, not about don't privatize at all. Because we've seen, look at our state-owned enterprises. If I had my way, a lot of them would be semi-privatized. Bring in the sanity of private enterprise and bring in the operationalization of the public sector. You can find a marriage. And that is what I heard John Jinapor say, that it's not like, in fact, he mentioned that they were going to engage even the staff and others to get their ideas on it. But I think some level of privatization at this point is needed, else we'll keep coming back to this point where ECG is incurring losses and all of us suffer the consequences because our lights will go off.
Sure. But there are so many forms of privatization. So we can look at a model which will fit our
but you see, most often we might end up in this country, when we talk about privatization, we'll end up the government getting just about 10% or 20%.
So it's the quality of privatization, the quality of negotiations.
Yes, and also,
not about not privatizing.
I mean, with the state-owned enterprise you mentioned, I mean, what I always ask the question: what difference does the private sector bring in, apart from maybe some investment, financial investment? Is it also about I mean, leadership and then technical experience, which our existing people do not have? You understand? So these are reasons why I feel that if we really look at, I mean, we have the in-house experience. If the private sector can come in and turn around state-owned institutions, I'm sure we should be able to do the same as a government-owned institution. If we take away the politicization, that is really where the problems are. I mean, the excessive politicization, political control, and wanting to make sure that we have political cronies, taking charge of this institution, benefiting from it.
And we also need
so
to bear in mind that ownership is a critical determinant of enterprise performance. And look at many of our state institutions, because Abanejuma. So it's free for all. But the private sector investor, private investor will ensure that there's always value for money. So this is something we should bear in mind. And it's good news that the incoming minister has assured that he's going to engage the workers. No one knows it all. And wisdom does not reside in, one person said, no one person is a repository of wisdom. So there's a need to engage more. And I was on a trip with Honorable General Paul to India and Uganda.
Okay.
Yeah, to study their systems. I believe he's promised to implement what we saw there. I believe, yeah, we can learn a lot of lessons from their system, which is working to their standard.
All right.
I think he mentioned that yesterday, but let's bring in Wisdom Dogbe as well.
Wisdom does not reside, something you said, but Wisdom is on Zoom with us, so let's hear him out. Wisdom, what do you make of it? What's your take on the issues that popped up from vetting yesterday?
Yeah, I watched part of the vetting, not all of it, and I would say it was indeed very interesting. I think the responses from Honorable Dr. Tufos and his responses demonstrate, a depth of understanding into what is wrong with our economy, and his clear and also concise points, in addressing the challenges ahead. That should come as a huge excitement to both the local and international investor communities, to our funding partners, and I think to the average Ghanaian. They should all be excited. We should all be excited about, the hope for the future and our current leadership and a hope for economic relief. Honorable Atu mentioned a few things that I particularly took note of. He said that as finance minister, he will increase revenue without necessarily introducing or increasing taxes. And he was also very resolute in explaining the need to be fiscally disciplined in the fight to reduce inflation and also to address the depreciation of the city. Yeah. And I also like his vision to establish the Independent Debt Management Office and another independent value for money office to cut waste. I think that is what Ghanaians voted for, an administration that will be efficient when it comes to spending and better manage the debt and improve revenue generation. So it's exciting times ahead for the nation. And judging from what the finance minister wants to accomplish, I would anticipate that we'll take some bold steps to strengthen the tax administration in the country and simplify tax processes to broaden the net and maybe provide some kind of incentives, for tax compliance. And I think we can also expect to see a comprehensive budget planning process from his office to reflect realistic revenue forecasts, aligning expenditures with available resources.
Okay. Do you want to touch on the energy bid, the privatization bid, or should we get to other?
Look, I think ECG is in serious trouble when it comes to its financials and operations. And so privatization may just be one of the approaches to save the place from collapsing. I understand they are now operationally inefficient and they have significant debt burden which is threatening their survival. Apparently, they collect 1.2 billion cedis in revenue every month, yet only 800 million goes into the cash waterfall mechanism. The rest 400 million goes to pay several vendors and contractors for so-called services and supplies. That may not even be needed, My understanding is that they have numerous contracts and several containers are also sitting at the Harbor, that is attracting demurrage. So the level of inefficiency we are hearing about at ECG, it just might make sense to change management and likely privatize the place to improve efficiency and optimize their operations. I like the privatization idea because private companies often have greater incentives to streamline their operations. I think the only thing we should think about is the issue with equity concerns, because if you run it as a private business, their focus is not much on public service. But I think we can negotiate all of that in the contract as well.
Right. Thank you, Wisdom. Let's get to other papers now. I think the Overseer, Remy. There are so many other stories in the Daily Graphic. Just pick one for yourself and get into it. Let's go to the Overseer.
Okay, so I have here Mahama fulfills promise of creating the youth ministry, story on page 2. The same, abolish E-levy betting tax. We've already dealt with that. NDC jubilates over Atu Forson's appointments as finance minister. Then private sector participation, crucial and power distribution. That's also.
It's getting to
so let me
story.
Look at the youth one. Yeah. So says Mahama fulfills promise of creating a youth ministry.
fulfills already.
President John Dramani Mahama has fulfilled a key campaign promise by establishing the Ministry of Youth Development and Empowerment as part of his recently announced restructuring of government ministries. Yeah, so key agencies expected to operate under the Ministry of Youth Development and Empowerment include the Youth Employment Agency, Scholarship Secretariat, National Service Secretariat, Youth Enterprise Support, National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program.
Okay.
Yeah, so these agencies are intended to play a pivotal role in equipping young people with the tools and resources needed for sustainable employment and economic empowerment.
I heard it, Mama has created youth employment, so I thought, oh, already, and I didn't hear anything about that. But we can pass this round if you have some more thoughts on that, and then we get.
Yeah, I mean, just briefly I don't think it was necessary to, carve out an entire ministry for the youth.
Why is that?
We already had one in the what do you call it?
Sports.
Youth and sports. I mean, it's a very, first of all, let me commend him for sticking to his promise. Yes, I mean, cutting the number of ministries. We are expecting that he'll still stick to the 60 ministers he's promised. But I mean, let's look at it. I'm looking at efficiency here. Yes, let's ensure that all these sub agencies under the youth ministry, I'm sure some of them also could be merged.
Okay.
Yes, so that we make sure that we have just one or two very key institutions that are catering to the actual needs of the youth.
All right.
Yeah.
A quick thought before Mr. Money comes in. Of course, the numbers, we must stick to what we said, what the president said. But a quick bit in there. If a ministry is created for the youth, whether attached to something else or not, I feel it's about how relevant it becomes. There are so many problems for young people. You were talking about one partly related to unemployment, the betting issue. You get it. So if there can be a ministry and it will work and make the youth thrive in this country, where we are headed by 2050, the projections are that the populations of the youth, not just in Ghana, in Africa, will be way up there. Already they are. So if these ministries will be created and serve the purpose and ensure that the youth are empowered and are capacitated, as some people will say it, I have no problem. But if it's just another creation of another ministry that doesn't really add up to much, then it leaves a lot to be desired. Mr. Money.
Ghanaian Times, 2025 budget to scrap E-levy betting tax to forcing is being quoted here. Legislate prevention of political appointees from buying state lands. This coming from Okujeto Ablakwa, the leader of the oral team. And government to tackle corruption head on. This assurance is coming from His Excellency the President John Dramani Mahama. CRI alarmed over proposals for parents to bear SHS costs. My take is on the fight against corruption, which has proved over the years to be chronically difficult. And the reason is it's not difficult to find. Political will has been so conspicuous by its absence in fighting corruption. So if His Excellency can master the political will by not closing his eyes when his appointees are alleged to be involved in corruption, by dealing with them surgically, I believe you make a headway in fighting corruption. Because if you look at the cause of corruption, and corruption has consigned so many people to poverty. Poverty is a huge issue in this country, and funds which are meant to make life better for the ordinary Ghanaian find themselves in the pocket of people who fleece the nation without any twinge of guilt, any sense of shame, or any prick of conscience. So His Excellency should set the example. Leadership is always by example. So we should go all out there, master the political will, and ensure that at least we make a headway in the fight against corruption. It's not within the bounds of possibility to eliminate corruption altogether, but it's a fight which is winnable if the right approach is adopted and with all tenacity and intensity.
I was trying to find where we are now on the Corruption Perception Index, but we don't have much time. Ben.
I'll do these stories very quickly. I'll start with the New Republic. National Security Cartel blows $3 million on toy spyware as devices meant to eavesdrop on citizens failed to work. I'll just give snippets of that story because there are claims made that we cannot independently confirm. But then NIB boss in oral trouble, oral being Operation Recover All Loot, as shocking evidence emerged of a land grab after lawyers' denial. But there's been a back and forth on that issue with Martin Kwebu saying one thing, the former NIB boss, or the NIB boss actually saying that is not true, and then Okudzeto Ablakwa following through with some what is evidence. We'll find out how that pans out. Akufo-Addo's statue of vanity in 2nd D vandalized, and I just want to say we've been here before because of time. Listen, you may not exactly like somebody, but whatever it was, this was put up legitimately. This bit about, I've heard suggestions about there was a certain footballer that would have been better placed to be at that roundabout. But going to vandalize the statue, I don't think we should be adopting those. I don't like this person, or this person is no longer in power, and so we can. I don't think it's right.
I don't know.
President John Mahama confronting the challenges of a nation in crisis. So I'll just do these stories very quickly. But there's this one that says oral sex is the leading cause of throat cancer.
I saw that this morning.
I saw that story yesterday, and I know some observers are worried, but it's an interesting story. You can check it out. I think it was on, I don't know whether it was the BBC or CNN as well. But National Security Cartel blows $3 million on toy spyware. A high-priced spy device purchased for a staggering $3 million by a cartel, according to the story, within the National Intelligence Leadership, intended for illegal eavesdropping on private conversations of citizens, now sits unused at the National Signals Bureau. Obtained in 2018 under the pretext of enhancing national security, the IMSI catcher device was actually aimed at monitoring the discussions of political adversaries by the National Intelligence Directors from the Dankwa Institute. It goes on and on, talks about the fact that ordinarily this would cost about $300,000, a fraction of the exorbitant $3 million. But like I said, these are claims made by the paper from their source. Mahama dissolves boards, Adomotri Sefakai dismissed. All of those stories there. You know that Paul Adomotri was on the Ghana Airports Company board, and my big brother Sefakai was also on the MPA's board. Of course, no scandals with him, but the story cites the Christmas tree saga when it comes to Paul Adomotri. Economy Times, Mahama focuses on creating well-paying jobs for Ghanaians as AGI calls for tax reforms. 244 megawatts additional power generation needed before end of 2025 to avoid power disruption, and Ghanaians extol Atuforsen as best fit for Finance Ministry. That's it for me. I just have a birthday and that's it.
Okay, let's go to Wisdom for reflections on some of the stories that have come up so far. Wisdom, any of them pique your interest? What's on your mind?
Yeah, I think His Excellency President Mahama followed the law in dismissing the board members appointed by the previous administration. The president typically has the legal authority to appoint and dismiss board members of state-owned enterprises and commissions and councils, especially if the appointments are political in nature. And is exercising this authority within the framework of the law, which is important to note. These are, personnel changes that everyone anticipates when there is a change in power. But I think we should also view these moves as a fulfillment of the president's electoral mandate, to reform or change, the direction of state-owned enterprises and commissions, particularly if these enterprises are perceived to be underperforming or mismanaged, especially if you're buying Christmas trees at that amount. And I also believe that dismissing these board members provides that opportunity to hold the previous leaders accountable, for their performance and decision-making, especially if there are allegations of mismanagement and corruption. And even if there is nothing suited, it is still within the president's prerogative to change personnel.
Thank you, Wisdom. Ben, I think we have some time. Let me chip in this story quickly before we go. Final works at Obeche-Bilamte interchange to be completed by March. According to the engineer, the financial ancillary works are ongoing on portions of the Bechebi-Lamte interchange project to enable the contractors to hand over the project by the end of March this year. And there was a story I saw. Yeah, fire at Techiman Central Market affects 700 shops. Quickly, if we can reflect on the incident of fire that we've been experiencing since we entered this year, 2025, actually. It started on the very first day of the year. Yeah. Mr. Money, and then you can give us
I think yesterday the President did assure the nation. I think it was at a meeting with markets, the affected victims, and he did assure them that there'll be security presence in the markets. CCTV will also be installed in the market, and he also did not rule out the possibility of arson cases. And so he needs the time for him to sharpen his focus on the market, because the livelihoods of many people have been affected, and it's so heart-rending and spine-chilling. So our hearts and prayers are with the affected victims. So please, we should ensure that our markets are safe for business, for our market women.
Thank you. Remy?
Yes, I think planning of our markets and then security has been an issue. In the case of Kantamanto, there have been fires over and over and over, and then right immediately after, they quickly rebuilt, and as happened, the stores are just so close together that, I mean, sometimes it's so very difficult for human traffic if you go to Kantamanto, yes. And you see wires crisscrossing all over, very poor electrical network, and these have been some of the factors, apart from the possibility of someone deliberately setting up some fires. So, I mean, this time around, I'm hopeful that they will ensure that at least they are zoned properly, and then make sure that there are enough lanes wide enough for fire trucks. I mean, we need to plan for some of these things, so that in case there's such a reoccurrence, the fire service will be able to make their way into the market to save life, and also ensure that there's adequate security. I mean, because I know some people sleep there, and the Kantamanto is a very huge place. Yeah. It's one a very huge area. I mean, yeah. And on the wrapping up also, I just want to touch on the issue of the state's lands that Honorable Ablakwa is proposing we pass a law. It's long overdue. One of the things that pains me is the fact that you see very prime lands, and then you see the amount of money that people paid for them. And in the case of
ridiculous prices,
bosses on it's being alleged that he paid it for 160,000.
Yeah, 160,000.
The land itself, we know that land in that area goes in the millions of dollars. At the end of the day, what's happening is when people purchase these lands, they end up
reselling.
Yes, not just reselling, but also using them for commercial purposes. Often you may find that the original purpose of the land was not for that. And we are having, it distorts the spatial planning of the particular area, ends up bringing traffic. And I mean, I live at Kwabinya. We had these agaic lands which were sold quite painfully, and there are churches and residential properties coming up. That wasn't the original intention. There is a nuclear school just adjacent what was sold, which could have been expanded, you know, to cater for more scientists. It's been sold. And now there's so much traffic on that road. So, I mean, it really hurts. If it's being purchased under good circumstances, that's fine. But I'm sure there was a reason why forebears, claimed these lands, because they anticipated that in the future to come, yes, there will be the need to, you know, develop these lands
and just
to the nation.
On that point, at least I've heard talk about the fact that public officials are not going to be allowed to, you know, purchase land, state land, and all of these take into their custody when their tenure is done, state property, like how in the term of vehicles, some have done. And at least we must commend the former president, Akufo-Addo, because at the tail end of his administration, he banned people from you know, taking out vehicles and all of that. That was a good thing, but a lot of that has gone before. You see, I always say that while we go back to the IMF and talk about our debt stock and everything, if we look at the quantum of what we lose, we have lost, let's say, since, let me not even go back to 1992, 2000 to now, some close to 25 years, to corruption and to such losses where people take from the state at paltry sums. It would be Enormous. And you can't just imagine what that could have done for ordinary citizens. Health, education, potable drinking water, fighting galamsey. I mean, it's heartbreaking sometimes, but you must start from somewhere. So it's good that at least we are starting from this point, and hopefully we're able to do something when it comes to these situations. I don't know. But
on a very light note, not to belabor the point about the state's lands, but Ben, are you not surprised none of these prophets have started prophesying that the end is near with the fires that's, you're seeing? And it's not just here in Ghana. It's in the US as well, LA.
In the US.
So I'm surprised that none of the prophets have come out yet to say that the end is near.
They have not seen. They have not seen. They have not seen anyway.
Hear no evil, see no evil.
Let me throw that to wisdom. Wisdom, you've been seeing the incidents of fire that we're grappling with, both here in your home in the US.
Yes.
What's on your mind?
Okay, even though there were no fatalities in the fires here, businesses were burned down, properties worth thousands of cedis were destroyed. And to lose your business and livelihood in this unfortunate incident, especially in this current economic situation in the country, I think it is very concerning and very saddening. I don't know if it's just me, but I hear about these fires way too often in this country. And now, as you rightfully said, we have fires going on in the US and California as we speak. And I've been wondering here, as far as Ghana is concerned, what can we do as a nation to address these disasters? Thank God His Excellency President Mahama has stepped in and deployed the National Fire Service in major markets across the nation to handle this. We need to take steps to reduce the instances of fire outbreak like this one. If it is arson, find the perpetrators and bring them to book. If it is accidents, we need to start asking ourselves, what can we do as far as building is concerned to minimize this kind of fires? And then I want to end on the issue of the looted lands, okay? I think we will go by what the scripture says. It says in 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 8, that we shall pursue, overtake, and recover all.
Thank you, Pastor Dogbe.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
And,
Ben, you have some more stories?
Yes, I do. And what's in a name? I find it interesting. I'll go back to the New Republic. Mahama to move into seat of government after rename. After rename. Really? We've had this Jubilee House, Flagstaff House. Originally Flagstaff House, Jubilee House.
This has to end.
But President John Dramani Mahama has assured he will move into the seat of government after the name is reverted to Flagstaff House instead of the current Jubilee House. It follows the controversy over which of the names should permanently be given to the edifice after the outgone government changed it from Flagstaff House to Jubilee House in 2017 when President Akufo-Addo assumed office. There's a bit I want to read. Mr. Mahama was voted into power on December 7 and sworn in a month later, has been operating from his private office in cantonments in Accra. In a recent interview said his stance was based on principle and respect for history. So here's what he says. I will only move into the house when it is renamed Flagstaff House. It's a matter of principle and respect for our nation's history. He is also allegedly yet to use the fleet of vehicles at his disposal as president. The decision by the president to hasten slowly in moving into the Jubilee House or the Flagstaff House has been viewed as a wise move. While a few or a section of the population is in a disagreement, many others are in support. While the president is citing name change as the reason behind his early occupation of the edifice, there are also others who believe, and I'm editing because the quality of the story is a bit, there are also others who believe it is purely a security reason. Though the place was officially handed, and this is how I end, officially handed to Mr. Mahama by President Akufo-Addo himself, it is alleged that he has been advised to stay off until all security checks are properly done to ensure the place is secured. Sometimes in government, and not just the presidency, ministerial appointees and all of that, they want a proper sweep of the offices because before you realize the place has been bugged and everything you're doing is...
And delegation.
And this
delegation was
look at the time for transition. I think it's too short.
Yeah.
In the US, look at the US with all its advancements. Has more than 1 month, 2 months, or November to January, about 2 months. I think we should also take a hard look at ours to ensure that reasonable time is allotted for the transition period.
On the name that we keep flip-flopping, I think we need to settle this once and for all, because definitely if MPP, the next MPP government will also want to say that we want to revert back to Jubilee House, because that's what we named it. Perhaps we could consider then having a neutral name that will stay, because I mean, if you go to everywhere, every country,
legislate the name.
Yes, every country has. The U.S. has their White House. It's permanent. Nobody comes in and changes it. It's the same elsewhere. So it doesn't augur well for our democracy. It's seeming a bit petty.
But Afil-Money, just are you done, or were you going to say something?
I was going to complete and then with the former President Mahama not moving into the Jubilee, a serious allegation. You talked about the sweeping for bugs, and most of our money made quite a serious allegation that the outgoing government bagged the place.
Back to the place, right.
He's not been able to use it yet. Of course, we didn't see any evidence being offered to that, but I mean, that's quite serious. And we talked about, other institutions. In the UK, if one prime minister, the very day he's going to leave in office, the next one is ready moving.
They move with alacrity.
Number 10 Downing Street.
Same day.
Yes.
What's the name? Biden is just going. Trump is going to move in soon. Yes, they've had some time, but I think we can work on these processes, as you're saying, if it means
extending the time.
But we need to avoid some of these recurring issues.
Right, gentlemen. Let's do about 2 minutes more and see how we can manage the time. But very briefly, what's the case for Flagstaff House as a name there? Let's do history. And what's the case for Jubilee House? I mean, you have been there, done that. That's why I'm posing that question to you. Of course, there are the challenges, for example, stationery. Do you realize what this means? It means all of that must change from Jubilee House. When it was changed from Flagstaff House to Jubilee House, it will change. When it's changed from Jubilee House back to Flagstaff House, it will change, all at a cost. But what's the case for either name?
Flagstaff House is the original name for the place. This is a colonial inheritance. And decided to maintain it. And when Kufuor built the Jubilee House to mark the 50th independence anniversary, the name was changed from Flagstaff House to Jubilee House.
Exactly.
And since then, it has been going back and forth. I think there's a need to stop this comedy and then be serious about it.
All right. Any final thoughts, Wisdom, and then it's a wrap. Wisdom?
Ben, I had the opportunity to sit down with President Mahama 2 days ago. We discussed some very interesting things. And I can tell you, he's very strategic and tactical in his decision making. So when it comes to renaming the Flagstaff House before moving in or delaying using all of the official vehicles or making all of his appointments at a go, I think we should trust the process. He knows what he's doing, and this nation is in good hands.
Okay.
All right. Well, let me wrap with a birthday. And you have some
wishes. Yes, sure. Still new. So let me take the opportunity to sprinkle best wishes of the year on a brother and a friend. And the Bible, Wisdom quoted the Bible, and the Bible states in Proverbs 18:24 that a friend, there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And I have a friend who symbolizes a brother, even though he's a friend, and who is loyalty epitomized, and generosity personified. And his name is Sefese Jaffa SS. So SS, Happy New Year, and may the Lord cause all the laughter. Laugh louder than you used to laugh, and all your dreams to materialize this very year.
I want to be your friend too, so you can be wishing me.
But sweetie, those will take you by surprise. I'm celebrating today someone we've known and been a friend to, someone who works close to you, actually.
Okay, who's that?
And I don't know whether Yao can splash the picture on now, and maybe you will get to find out. I call her Zuzu. Zuleiha, and today is her birthday. She's been here with us and done that. Happy birthday to you. God bless and favor you. And now you know why I was saying she was...
I'm so surprised today is your birthday and I didn't know. But happy birthday. She manages social media for Girl Gets Up Africa. So Zuleiha, I'm proud of you, proud of your growth. Happy birthday, and I'll see you. I mean, I'll chastise you for not telling me, but I'll see you later.
Well, that's how we cap it off. Sports is up next. But before we get there, we thank Wisdom Dogbe financial analyst Afil Moni, former president of the Ghana Journalists Association, Remy Edmondson, who is with the PPP, and he contested in Papa Peko. He contested in the Dominico Abinya constituency as well. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining the
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you.
Well, you want to stay because sports comes up next.
Haruna Mubarak will be presenting that. Do stay.